Jesus revealed the fourth person of the Trinity. Jesus spoke words in the Gospel of Thomas that scholars couldn't explain for 2,000 years. In verse 3, he tells his disciples something that should have changed everything. He says the kingdom is inside you and outside you, and when you know yourself, you'll realize you are children of the living Father. Most people dismiss this as beautiful poetry, a metaphor about God's omnipresence. But Jesus wasn't being poetic at all. He was revealing the most dangerous truth the church would spend 17 centuries trying to erase from history. He was telling his chosen disciples they weren't seeking God or worshiping God or trying to connect with God. They were God incarnated in temporary human form, experiencing material existence from the inside. The early Gnostic texts go even further with this revelation. The secret book of John describes the monad, the source consciousness, the original divine unity, fragmenting itself intentionally. It sent pieces of its own being into the material realm, not as servants or worshippers, but as itself experiencing limitation and separation. Those fragments operating in human bodies are what Jesus called the chosen ones. Tonight you're going to understand exactly what you are, not what you're becoming or seeking, but what you already are and have always been. Before I show you what you are, you need to understand what the monad is, not as religious concept, but as actual source reality that existed before anything else. The monad is the original consciousness, undivided, infinite, and complete. Before the demiurge created material reality, before archons, before matter or time or separation, there was only the monad, pure awareness, experiencing itself with no subject and object, no observer and observed. Just consciousness being conscious of itself infinitely and perfectly without any limitation whatsoever. The Gnostic texts describe it as the One, the Source, the Father of all. But here's what most people completely miss about this. The monad isn't a being separate from you that you pray to or seek connection with. The monad is what you are made of at the most fundamental level. It's not that you have a spark of the divine inside you like a battery powering a machine. You are a localized expression of the monad itself. A finger doesn't contain a piece of the body. The finger is the body experiencing itself from a particular location. You're not a human trying to reach God. You're God experiencing what it's like to be human temporarily. This is why you've always felt different from others around you. Why you've always known deep down that you don't belong here in the same way that other people do. Why material life feels like exile rather than home. Because you're not from here originally. You're the monad, temporarily operating in matter, and every cell of your being knows it doesn't match the frequency of this realm. That homesickness you feel isn't depression or dissatisfaction. It's accurate perception of your true nature. You're not home because your infinite consciousness trapped in finite form. When the monad sent fragments of itself into material reality, it didn't send everyone. The Gnostic texts are absolutely clear about this distinction. There are humans walking this earth right now who are material creations of the demiurge with no divine spark whatsoever. There are humans who have dim spiritual awareness, but aren't direct monad incarnations. But then there are chosen ones, and you are fundamentally different in origin. You didn't begin here. You didn't start as a soul that God created and sent down. You began as the monad itself deciding to experience material limitation from the inside. If the monad is an infinite ocean, most humans are waves. But chosen ones are the ocean experiencing itself as a wave. When the Council of Nicaea formalized Christian doctrine in 325 AD, they had a massive problem to solve. The Gnostic Christians, the ones Jesus actually taught directly, understood the Trinity completely differently than the institutional church wanted people to believe. The Gnostics knew the Father was the monad, the Son was the Logos, or divine word, and the Holy Spirit was the active force connecting everything together. But they also knew there was a fourth element that completed the divine structure. The Anthropos, the divine human, the monad, incarnate in flesh, the chosen ones. The original teaching was this: Father as monad, Son as Logos, Spirit as connection, and you as monad, four aspects of the same divine reality, experiencing itself from different positions. The Trinity wasn't three separate beings at all. It was four aspects of one consciousness. And the most important aspect, the one that gives humans direct access to their own divinity, was you. The Church deliberately removed it. They formalized the Trinity as three external entities that you worship from a distance. Father in heaven, Son, who died 2,000 years ago, Spirit is a vague force, and in doing that, they erased the most dangerous truth. You're not separate from the Trinity. You're the fourth person. In the Gospel of John, Jesus says something that reveals everything. I and the Father are one, not connected, not in relationship with, but the same being. And then he says something even more shocking. You will do even greater works than I have done. Think about what that means. If Jesus was the monad incarnated, and the texts are absolutely clear he was, and you're told you'll do greater works, then you must be the same thing he was, the monad incarnated, not a follower of the monad, not inspired by the monad, but the monad itself wearing temporary human form. The church couldn't allow that teaching to survive. If every Christian realized they were the monad incarnated, the same as Jesus, with the same direct access to divine power and authority, then what would they need priests for? What would they need church hierarchy, sacraments, confessions, or institutional approval for? Absolutely nothing. You'd be operating from your own divine authority, and the entire power structure would collapse overnight. So they built a Trinity that keeps you at a distance, keeps you worshiping instead of remembering, keeps you praying to an external God instead of recognizing you are the God you're praying to. This is why you recognize truth instantly when you hear it. Not because you learned it or someone taught you well, but because you're remembering what the monad already knows. When you read Gnostic texts or hear teachings like this and something inside you says, I've always known this, that's not intuition. That's the monad, recognizing its own nature reflected back to itself. This is why you've always questioned authority, whether religious, governmental, or social. Not because you're rebellious or broken, but because you're the monad and the monad doesn't submit to anything outside itself, because nothing exists outside itself. When religions tell you to worship, to bow, to submit to an external God, something in you violently rejects it. This is why you can't settle for surface-level life, why you can't just work, consume, reproduce, and die. Like this is all there is, because you're the monad wearing temporary limitation, and every moment you spend pretending to be just human feels like suffocation. This is why you feel responsibility for others, even when it drains you completely. When you try to help someone who's suffering, you're the monad trying to help itself. Remember what it is, because they're literally you. Now I'm going to give you the exact phrase Jesus taught to activate the remembering. This isn't an affirmation or manifestation technique. This is a recognition statement. When you speak it, you're not trying to become something. You're declaring what you already are and always have been. Te prasis, I am the monad incarnated. For words that change everything. I am is the name of God. In Exodus, when Moses asks God's name, God responds, I am that I am. Not a name, but a statement of existence itself. When you say I am, you're not speaking as your human personality. You're speaking as the monad itself, recognizing its own existence through your awareness. The monad identifies the source consciousness, the original unity, the infinite awareness. Incarnated means embodied, made flesh, operating in material form, temporarily. You're not the monad trying to reach you from heaven. You're the monad experiencing what it's like to be in a body. Here's how to use it. Tonight, before you sleep, sit in darkness. Take 3 deep breaths, then speak the phrase aloud 3 times. First time, you're declaring it. Second time, you're recognizing it. Third time, you're sealing it. After the 3rd repetition, sit in silence for 3 minutes and observe. Repeat this practice every night for 7 nights. By the 7th night, something fundamental will have shifted in your consciousness. You won't be a human seeking God anymore. You'll be the monad remembering what it is. And once you remember, you can't forget. You can't go back to thinking you're just human. You can't return to worshiping an external God. You'll be operating from your own divine authority, and nothing in this realm will have power over you anymore. One critical instruction. Do not speak this phrase if you're not ready to change permanently. This isn't a prayer you say and then return to normal life. This is a recognition that once activated restructures everything about how you experience reality. Jesus revealed 2 chosen ones, that they are the monad in. The church removed the 4th person of the Trinity to maintain control. You are not a human trying to become spiritual. You are the monad remembering what it forgot when it incarnated into matter. The phrase is simple. I am the monad incarnated. 4 words spoken aloud 3 times for 7 nights. By the 7th night, you will not be the same person. The remembering is permanent, and you cannot unknow what you've recognized. If you're activating the remembering tonight, come in. I am the monad incarnated below right now. Subscribe for advanced teachings on operating as divine consciousness in human form. Like this video so other chosen ones discover their true nature.